All right. So, how are you guys doing today?
Pretty good.
Good. All right. Well, we're glad that you decided to talk to us, Dan and Elisa from New Vintage New York, or NY, I guess is the store name. And the reason why we wanted to bring you on is because Dan, came on our comments and kind of stirred up some trouble, some good trouble that we always like on our blog. And here's the story as I understand it. So, Dan, you can tell me what's wrong or if I need to change any of these details here. You started selling eBay as a young person, and you've continued to do so even as you've gone to school and you started a career and got married. And now you're married and have a full-time job, and you still have an eBay store, and you have a full-time eBay store. And the big headline is you pay people to take photos and list for you.
That's correct. So really just to start from square one, my mom used to buy and sell Beanie Babies when those were pretty popular back in the late 90s.
Yeah.
So I was around 11, 12 years old at the time, and she would let me go on her eBay account and look for things to buy. And I may have bought a few things I wasn't supposed to. So
I'm sure we're talking about being on what kind of dial-up, right? It was AOL?
yeah, it was AOL. So if someone called, you'd get knocked off. And it was a big controversy in the house if someone picked up the phone while you're on AOL Instant Messenger. So that's really the time of when I started.
And real quick, had she been just kind of like a hobby, or it was a real thing for her?
No, it was more of a hobby. She would go on and buy those along with like Christmas presents, things like that. It was pretty early in the time of eBay, so it was definitely a cool time.
And then from there, you started to sell with like baseball cards. Is that correct?
Yeah, so when I was younger, I would sell my baseball cards, Pokemon cards. Pokemon were pretty big at the time. So keep in mind, I was like a 12-year-old kid. So
Wow.
I would buy Pokemon cards at school and sell them on eBay. So I made pretty good money at that time, buying and selling those during my lunchtime.
And I'm assuming if you're selling these to probably mainly adults, I guess, probably not other kids at that time. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, at that point, it didn't really register to me who I was selling to. I just knew if I listed a Pokemon card, I would get a money order at that time. There wasn't any PayPal, so I would have to go to the post office and cash my money order and then send it out. It was definitely a completely different process at that point.
That's actually kind of incredible because I think back to when I was 12. I just don't know if it would have had the kind of mindset to be able to handle those kind of details and follow through and talk to people. So that's pretty incredible.
Definitely a young entrepreneur. He knew he liked money from the beginning.
Sounds like it. Okay, so here's the part I don't know. So connect us to when you're a kid selling these baseball cards and Pokemon cards to then being like, an adult. It's with a wife and a full-time eBay store. Like, what happened in between there? Like, how was eBay involved in your life at that point?
So, I mean, during high school and college, I didn't sell a ton. I sold a little bit. I bought more than I sold. And really, it was more of you didn't really want to talk to your friends about selling stuff on eBay because no one else really did it. So it was more of a stigma, and I didn't want to sound like a weirdo selling stuff on eBay. So I did more buying than selling during high school and college. And then I would say it wasn't until the past few years where we really started to sell a lot of stuff on eBay.
And just to be clear, both of you guys have a full-time jobs? Is that
Yeah,
correct?
I actually, eBay is kind of my third job. I'm a full-time X-ray tech and then part-time bartender for weddings and then do eBay as well. So
Wow.
keeps us nice and busy, but it helps. For most of our stuff right now, he went from doing mostly sports cards, and then together we started doing more like vintage clothing, like houseware and stuff like that. But it's kind of fun. It's more fun, and it's something we can do together. So it's kind of like we're little scavengers and kind of going through all the stores and stuff. So it's fun. It doesn't really feel like a job until probably the packaging part.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I just want to say how much we always love talking to, two people who work, who are partners doing this, because I think that's when it is fun because you guys can go out there and scavenge. I mean, that's how we do it, and we really enjoy it. But I guess my question is, since you guys both have full-time jobs and they sound like good jobs, Why even do eBay?
Really more, it just started out more as a fun side gig. I would typically, more of a hobby, just buy and sell cards on there. So I really did that from about 2004 when I was able to open up my actual eBay account until now. So really, it just started out buying and selling cards. And then it was our honeymoon part one. We were in Daytona, Florida. We were just going, we would always go to garage sales and thrift shops, but we never actually bought things to resell them. And we were in this one thrift shop and we saw I think it was more me. I saw like an Armani Exchange t-shirt and it was like 50 cents. So the light bulb just kind of went off. I was like, hey, I could easily buy that and sell it for like $30 on eBay. And then it just kind of went from there. So that was probably, what was it, May 2013, 2014?
Wow. 13.
Yeah, she got our wedding date wrong too, so I can hold that against her.
And Lisa, did you have any experience on eBay, or Dan kind of helped bring you in?
Dan definitely helped bring me in. I'm a little technically challenged with the computer. I like to sit down at them, and they will usually automatically shut off. So he's definitely more in charge of the actual site, where I like more doing like the organizing once we get things in, presentation wise, like packaging stuff, steaming, things like that.
See, it's not a secret. That's exactly the way we work, where I'm like you. I don't really deal with a lot of the technical eBay stuff. That's what my partner does. And then I'm more of like the physical organizer and getting things ready and photographing. So that's my thing.
It's perfect though. See, it helps balancing. It helps with other marriage things as well.
So now I also have to ask too, before we kind of get into more of your story and your process, since you guys are young, there's always an assumption that young people kind of turn away from eBay because it's like kind of clunkier and a bit more old school. And they like Amazon because Amazon's more new and you can really like, I guess, grow a big business. Has Amazon ever attracted you?
I would say that I've started to do some research on it. And obviously I would continue to sell on eBay, but I guess more of the newer items. I may start to just look into the FBA program to send like things like DVDs, PC games, just newer things in packages. And it'd be more for a storage perspective, just because we have so many items as it stands now. It would definitely be easier for us just to send those away and not have to worry about them from a storage aspect and sending them out. So we haven't started doing anything yet, but I've definitely been doing a lot of research on it.
And also to kind of your background, you were telling me, so it's your mom was buying or was getting stuff on eBay early on and kind of brought you in. And then you've told me that your father is kind of he's done a lot of cool things too. So he must have been an influence as well on you feeling like you could do stuff like this.
Yeah, so my dad actually had his own eBay account as well. And he would buy and sell used motorcycle parts and things like that. So he definitely taught me a lot about just net profit, things like that from a early stage. He's a subcontractor, so he would always tell me he wasn't impressed with getting a large multi-million-dollar job, and he would rather have a smaller job where get a higher net profit than having $1 million job and it potentially costing $1,001 to complete.
I think that's always interesting when I talk to younger people that sell on eBay or sell online, that it seems like there's always a path from their parents who have kind of, taught them that this was possible. Okay, let's get into your process. So you guys both have full-time jobs, but you have an eBay store with 6,500 items the last time I looked. Is that right?
I think it's 5,600, but we should be at 6,500 items pretty soon, hopefully.
Yeah. So you guys have a bigger store than we do, and we thought we had a big store. So obviously people are like, well, how is that possible? I mean, and that's possible because you guys actually hire out it's photographing and listing.
Yep.
Correct.
So I would say at this point last year, literally right around this time was Black Friday, and we probably had around 600 items in the store, and it was mostly just my sports cards and some random T-shirts and things like that. And then it really took off. We each went to a Goodwill. She went to one and I went to another, and we bought a ton of stuff. We don't actively go to Goodwill because it's typically more expensive, but we'll go on like a Black Friday, for example, because it's half off of all clothing. So that's the only reason we went. And then we each spent about $500-600, and we just had this glut of stuff. And we started to picture it and list it ourselves. And we did actually all of the items ourselves. And the issue that happened was if we kept going to different thrift shops, it just kept exponentially increasing. So at a certain point, we decided the only way that we can keep this up is to hire someone to do some pictures for us, because there's just no way that we could continue the process, because it was pretty exhausting.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think every single person that hears this is nodding their head. I mean, that's the one thing that I think makes eBay difficult, is that for the most part, you have to photograph and list every single item. And, this is a point in the podcast where there's like a needle scratch, because everyone's now wants to know how you actually hire out, this work, because, everyone would love to do that. But, we've talked to very few people that have been able to figure out how to do that successfully. So it sounds like maybe you might have kind of cracked the code for it yourself here.
I would say that it was around March. Is that right? March. We were both pretty just exhausted, and we would come home and picture stuff and list it and ship it out. And we were just like, we have to hire someone out. So I posted an ad on Craigslist. I think I titled it eBay Listing Associate. I just wanted to make it sound fancier than it would be, maybe attract some people. So I actually got probably 20 replies within like a week. All I did was post that we would pay 50 cents per item for them to picture it, and they could do it from home. And I just weeded out some of the people you could tell were kind of weird, and we basically narrowed it down to 2 or 3 people. And
no, real quick, did you put in the ad itself how much they would be paid, or that was afterwards when they?
No, I put in the ad itself. It would be 50 cents per item to be pictured, and I was surprised with how many people we ended up getting.
Yeah.
When we initially met the guy, we were pretty paranoid because we didn't want him to come to the house and do all the pictures there. We'd rather take the chance, because we just don't want a random person at the house and deal with that type of issue. And Lisa can chime in if she wants.
It was a little nerve-wracking because the first time we didn't give him a lot, but you're essentially giving him the items that you paid for that have value and are selling on eBay. So it's kind of one of those things, you're getting a little nervous first time meeting someone. But he's been with us for almost getting close to a year
since
now.
March. So he's done a great.
Right. Okay. So I've got several questions here. I mean, this is fascinating. Mm-hmm. Okay. So when you first met him, did you guys meet in a neutral spot, like a parking lot, or?
Yeah, we met at it's a Hannaford parking lot, so that's a grocery store around here.
Got it. And Lisa, maybe sketch out like what kind of guy is this who's willing to list stuff or to take photos on eBay? It's for you at 50 cents a pop.
Yeah, he's an older, middle-aged gentleman. When we first came and met him, we talked to him a little bit, and he actually kind of had a good idea of what we wanted, because himself, he works more along with car parts and has a small business doing that. So he has an idea of what people are looking for, like how people like to buy, make sure that for himself, he had to make sure that everything was included with numbers and parts like that.
So he already sold on eBay, or he already understood eBay?
Yeah, he does have an eBay account, and he obviously doesn't sell to the high level that we do, but he's definitely familiar with the process. He does more, I guess he collects Camaros, I want to say. And he actually has a full-time job as well. He works for the state, and I think he's an IT person for the state. He's definitely been great. I mean, we give him a lot of random items to pictures, so it's definitely a learning curve for him, but he's done a great job.
I mean, it's like if you guys hit the jackpot, you found like a smart person who works hard and understands eBay and is willing to do it for 50 cents a listing.
After the first time, he did a great job. So we definitely wanted to retain him. So I told him that we'd give him 75 cents per item, which I know it's only a quarter increase, but when you
Yeah.
look at just a percentage basis, it's definitely a big percentage increase. And yeah, I mean, he's been doing it, and we just pay him through PayPal when he's done. We basically we'll send him the money and say, okay, you did 400 items. Here's X amount of money.
And so people are clear, you're saying he gets 75 cents per item, not per a photo. So he'll
Correct.
do two
Yeah,
photos.
we'd be pretty broke if it was per photo, because it'll be like 2,000 pictures.
And so, Lisa, how do you guys do this? Do you just go over to his house and drop off a big plastic tub of clothes, or just bags, or?
Multiple tubs. So we're kind of getting to the point where we need to invest in a van because of that point. But we go there, we drop him off. He actually has quite a bit of storage area because he has selling his car parts. So that kind of helps. And we've set him up after working with him for a while. We set him up with kind of a bit more of like a professional photographer set up with backgrounds and lighting and everything. And obviously we know where he lives. So that actually worked out pretty good. And we go there, and then every time we go there, we exchange. We give him new stuff. He gives us what he pictured. So it works pretty good. And then come home and organize it all.
And does he have a family or a wife, or?
Yeah. He has a wife, and it's a little bit of distance is the only thing. How long do you think?
It's probably a half hour, which, I mean, it's definitely worth us driving a half hour to drop the stuff off to him. I would say for probably 3 or 4 months, I would meet him during my lunch break and during his lunch break, and we would basically take all the stuff out of the cars and put it back in. So at a certain point, I just said it'd be easier if I dropped off everything for you and picked it up during the weekend instead of doing it during our lunch breaks.
So is it pretty like on a schedule, like every Saturday? Is it every other week? I mean,
yeah, I would say usually every 1 or 2 weeks. We don't really bother him. We take more of a hands-off approach because we know that he's going to get them done, and I don't want to constantly reach out to him and ask him questions. So like during the holidays, I'm not going to bother him, and I don't expect him to take a lot of pictures during that time. It's really not.
right.
So I definitely try to respect his space, and when he gets the items done, which I know he will, then he'll send me a text and we meet up.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of assume that the plus of him doing a job like this is that it's very flexible. So he just does it on his free time. Yeah.
I think it works pretty great because it's kind of a win-win. Like, not many people can have a second job where they can stay at home do it, just walk out to their garage or whatnot when they have free time, and he doesn't have to, with us driving down there, he doesn't really have to drive anywhere. And it's kind of nice because a lot of times when, you're at a second job, like all my second jobs I've had to like drive to or waitress, or it's not like guaranteed money on how much money is coming in or if you work commission and things like that.
Plus
So,
it just kills you. Yeah.
yeah, so it's kind of a nice job. I didn't mind taking the pictures when we first started. It was kind of fun, but then, like he said, it gets, well, anyone who's worked in the eBay business, like, after making sure you get every little button and flipping everything over and making everything perfect when you're doing so many items, it kind of adds up after a while.
I mean, plus, there are people who like, you guys have full-time jobs and then they do eBay part-time, they're doing it in their off time. And that's, I mean, I don't know how people do that, and some people have kids on top of that. I mean, that's just really crazy lifestyle.
That's where we're kind of shooting for with the eBay is our goal eventually is so that when like we do have kids, this way we're kind of building up our inventory now so that when we do have kids, maybe it'll be enough so that I can stay at home with the kids. Because the way that daycare is nowadays, like
Oh my God.
how people do it.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, why even do daycare? It seems like it costs you as much to do it as how much people get paid.
Yeah, so this is kind of like that's kind of shooting for our goal is to go and like make enough where we're bringing in enough money every week where I can stay at home with the kids and do eBay on the side as well, but still have the money coming in enough where we don't really have to worry about sending the kids off to daycare or anything like that.
So, I've done the numbers ourselves, and it seems like you guys have done it and it's working, trying to figure out the numbers of how much I pay people versus how much we would make and all that. And then the question always come down to, so if I found someone like you guys found, and he's doing this really good job, my question is, why doesn't he just do this for himself? He's doing all that work, but he's only getting paid a certain amount. If he did his own items, he would make exponentially more.
I would say that it's definitely something he could do, but there are definitely a lot more moving parts than just taking the pictures. And I would just say for everyone else, you got to keep in mind that first we have to buy the items. We then do quality control, organize it. And then after the pictures, you have to list it. He only does the pictures for us, which is a whole other process. So after we get the items from him, it typically takes us a full day of organizing the items and putting them where they should be stored, which is a pretty big part of the process, because if something's not in a proper spot when you go to look for it, it can definitely cause a lot of time and energy looking for the item, and eventually you're not really going to make any money on it based on the amount of time you spent looking for it.
True.
Plus, on top of that, you have to think with eBay, you don't know when the items are going to sell. So it helps that we do have the full-time jobs because we're putting the money up beforehand to buy all these different things that could either sell. Like some items we get hits on the second we put them up. Some items we have a year to sell, but you're always making profit. But it's the same thing. You don't know when you're going to make the profit back. And he's kind of has a good job where he gets the money as soon as the item is put. He takes the picture, where we have to wait and we don't know when the money is coming to us, how long the item is going to take to sell. Some items sell right away, which is great. Some items we've noticed take like a year to sell. It's kind of like we're taking a little bit more of the risk, but it pays off 90% of the time, I want to say. Yeah. So
no, I mean, that totally makes sense. I guess, that seems like a very logical answer, and it seems to be true. I just can't believe that those people exist out there, but I guess that's perfect. It's kind of a good ecology. They're the people that are willing to have a risk, and then the people that just want just the steady income,
Yeah, and I would say it's just like any other job. I mean, you can work in a restaurant, and it doesn't mean that you're eventually going to open up your own restaurant because you're but yeah, I mean, some people are definitely fine with doing a certain task and not having to worry about the other parts of the process.
The other question I have is, so when we were kind of trying to do this talk here, we were kind of emailing back and forth. And last week after Thanksgiving, you guys had gone out and shopped, and there was a big sale. And you showed me a photo of like all these bags that you guys have bought of clothes. And you said that you guys spent $1,000 on clothes. Do you just take all that stuff to him and then he takes pictures of it all?
I would say that I will take out some of the items I know that are going to sell for a lot of money. So I also list, but I list any of the sports cards I have, I list, and any high dollar items I list. So if I know something's going to be like $100 or a couple $100, I'll do that myself.
Yep.
But a lot of the smaller items, basically, I can just walk you through the process. So Black Friday, we go to 3 different Goodwills, spend around $1,000 because all the clothes are half off. We come home, and then we have to remove, and this is usually just for Goodwill, but we have to remove all the tags from the clothes, which is pretty annoying.
Yep.
But, so we remove all the tags, and then we start to fold them all, and we put them in totes. After all the totes are full, I'll put them in my car, and Lisa may put some in her car, and then we drive them to his house. We pick up the items that he's already pictured. We give him a flash drive, and then he gets all of those items pictured that we sold at, or I should say that we bought at the Goodwill. So then after he's done with all of those items at the Goodwill that he's pictured, we come back, we pick it up from him, drop some more items off, and then we have to basically put away all of the items that we bought at the Goodwill in an organized manner. and then we give the flash drive to it's actually my younger sister that lists on eBay for us, and then she starts to list all of those items, and then once they start selling, we send them out. So that's really the process in a nutshell.
That sounds awesome. I mean, because I mean, and there are people who are hearing this that are just like, they wish they could have this because, the dream is everyone loves to go and shop, and go and find stuff. I mean, that's always the exciting part. It seems like you guys have really done a good job taking care of getting the kind of boringer parts taken care of for you.
It has helped a lot just for time-wise, because we do work full-time jobs. You come home after a long day. By the time you grocery shop, eat dinner and stuff like that, it was very hard to do all the processes at once. Having them has been definitely a godsend. Definitely helped a lot. But
I mean, I'm doing nothing but celebrating you guys. I just think you guys have kind of been really smart, and you've taken your time and you interviewed someone and you built a relationship. I mean, it seems like that's the only way that this could work. It seems like everyone is winning in the process.
Yeah, and I would want to stress if someone wants to take that approach, just keep in mind, even though you're having someone do pictures and list the items for you, there's definitely a lot of legwork in addition to that they have to take in consideration.
And you have to pay them up front the money where you may not see it back instantly. Because again, everyone who does eBay, you don't know exactly when the things are going to sell. So you're paying them up front for all those pictures when you may not receive it back that week.
I mean, are there ever weeks where you guys are paying out more for a labor than the money's coming in on things sold?
I mean, it can happen sometimes. It really depends on when the items are done, but just the simple math, if you think about it, we had under 1,000 items in our store around March, and now we have around 5,600 items. So just to keep the math simple, I would say between selling some of the items and things like that, we have around 5,500 items that we've paid to have listed and pictured. So basically 5,500 times $1.50 per item is what our cost is. That's $8,250 that we've laid out just to keep the math simple.
Yep.
So obviously we have to pay for all of that up front. It doesn't matter if the item sells or not, but we've definitely built the method and the cost structure to where we make money easily per item.
But see, I love that because that's how you got to do it. You have to kind of do those numbers, and it really doesn't sound that bad. I mean, you guys have built a robust full-time store for about $8,000. That that's a lot of money, but it's really not that much money if you think about how much profit I hope you guys are making each month.
Yeah, and that's just the cost, and for people to keep in mind, I know I'm stating the obvious, but that's just the cost to picture and list the items. It doesn't take into account the cost of the items.
Now, a couple things, a couple more details. So how much can this guy take? How many items can he handle per a week, like on a normal week?
I would say we actually did our largest thing with them. We did about 490 items, but it took them, I would say, a little over 2 weeks to do, which, like I said, completely fine. So I would say on a given week, you can probably do around 200 items.
That's incredible.
And then I would just say some of the flaws that we found in the process. We definitely, if there is an issue, we don't look to place blame on either the person that takes pictures for us or who lists. We typically will just want to first figure out how we could have corrected the issue before it happened, instead of going to the person and saying, hey, you missed a stain on the t-shirt, or when you listed the item, you should have done this. So before going to them and saying anything, we first want to think how we could have alleviated that issue from happening to begin with. So that's just something to keep in mind as well if people are taking that approach. Before, if there is an issue, just think what you could have done first before going to the person and maybe paying for it or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, if you don't treat people right, they'll just be like, well, this really isn't worth my time if I'm going to get some hassle.
Yeah, so I mean, the main issues that we've found is for children's clothing, sometimes it's tough if My sister gets a flash drive and a picture of it. It says a large on it. She can't really tell if it's the kids or not. So we definitely try to stay away from kids' clothing. Sometimes we buy it by default, but that's one thing. Another thing that we're going to start doing is if there's any issues on a piece of clothing, sometimes we don't like to buy things with stains and issues on it, but if it's worth the purchase, then we do it. So we're trying to put a bin aside of things that we know have issues, and we're going to put like a painter's tape on it where the issue is, so that he does notice that, and then we're going to have him put it on a separate flash drive of things that do have issues on it, so that when my sister gets it, she knows, okay, this item's going to have an issue on it, and she can make sure that it's properly described.
Now, I think the other thing too, I mean, is like you said, that this isn't just, you give stuff to people and then it's done and you don't think about it. There is a lot of work involved. I'm assuming when this guy takes all these photographs, someone has to go through and check them all, right? I mean, how do you supervise or oversee all that?
Well, my sister's actually the one, since she lists everything. If there's an issue or something doesn't match up, she's kind of a second set of eyes. And then after she lists it, I get an email, and I'm the third set of eyes. So if there's something that's not matching up, definitely I'm going to end up catching it, or she'll end up catching it.
When he takes pictures, does that include its measurements as well?
No. And I know that's been a point of contention. And actually, when we did our own pictures, we didn't really do measurements unless we felt we needed them.
I think more for us, we kind of do it on how, I guess, we buy our clothes. When we go to the store, we look like, I know what size I am, so I know if I'm looking for a small, medium, large. Like, I don't bring measuring tape to the store when I go.
Yep.
So I'm thinking mostly we don't. So when we started doing this, I mean, obviously we're still new. Isn't like we've done clothing forever, but we only did measurements on the things that didn't have a price or didn't have a label tag. So that was one of the things. Like if we didn't know the size of it, then we would do the measurements. Or if it was like a Burberry trench coat or something that we knew was fetching high dollar, where people would be more interested in it. For our time wise, it wasn't really working with us to taking the pictures, adding the extra time to, you at least have to do 3 different measurements most of the time for every item. So time wise, it didn't really add up to us, and we still do pretty good with sales, I think. I mean, we haven't had to people question oh, well, it says it's a small, is it real? Like, what are the measurements on it? And sometimes people do email us on if it's like a larger ticket item, but very rarely.
I laugh because I do remember this was the other big thing that Dan came into our blog and was posting on the comments how he doesn't that you guys don't do measurements, and is freaking people out, because I think it makes sense in some ways. Like, if someone's just going to buy, a medium shirt, then they get a medium, and, that's just the way it is. I guess the only issue, like my wife was saying, was like with a women's clothes. She's like, yeah, but, a women's clothes, the sizes are so different for every clothing line that she always likes to see a measurements. But then Dan's answer as well, then that person doesn't buy from me. The people that know a certain brand know what that size is, and that's what they always buy. So,
and I totally hear Ryan, because I'm the same way. Like, I could take 3 different size jeans, so it's definitely hard for women. We do tend to actually sell more towards guys because of that. I think we sell definitely more guys' clothes, but in the same instance, we buy more guys' clothes because, again, like guys are a little bit more easier on us.
Yeah. I mean, it's true. I think that's why Dan, he is freaking people out, but he totally makes sense. When I buy clothes, like, I know, what my waist is. I'm like a 36, 29, and that's just, it's what I always buy. So,
yeah,
I don't need the exact thing. That's all I need to know.
And then the other thing is, we find that most of the buyers, when they're buying something, it's a brand that they already know. It's something that they already have interest in. Like, they're not just shooting like, oh, I would like a long sleeve shirt. Like, they know their brands that they're looking for most of the time, because a lot of the times that's how we label our stuff is mostly just by brands. So, if you like that certain type of brand, you usually have bought it before and you know what size you're in. I wouldn't myself go and say buy a shirt offline that I have no idea what I've never bought before, and I have no idea if I'm a small or a medium or a large. So that kind of helps.
But I can see how not having to do its measurements cuts down on all the work and details.
Yeah, and I would say that the person that does pictures for us and who lists for us, it would definitely be a logistical nightmare, just the way I view it. If he had to do measurements and then try to write them down or translate it, I think it would be frustrating for him have to do that extra step. I think it's a lot easier just to take the picture and be done with it, as opposed to having to then do measurements and then write them down. I think if he wanted to do that, he would say, okay, I need a raise.
No, I mean, it's true. I mean, we still do our measurements on all clothes. We still haven't let go of that, but it's an interesting concept. I mean, and for those people hearing this, we've talked about this. I mean, we had a template on each of our listings up until probably not even a year ago. I mean, we still had that template that I guess a lot of eBay people had. And then someone was like, why have a template? Who cares? And you know what? We were like, yeah, who cares? And we stopped doing a template, and it's made our listing so much easier, 5 times as fast, Yeah,
and the clothes. I mean, obviously, if something is doesn't have a tag on it, and we need to do listings, or if it's a large and it looks a little small, then we will certainly provide measurements to that. But 99% of the time, that is not the case.
And then just real quick, though, I guess I'm hearing a voice in my head about a vintage clothes. I'm assuming you mainly it's doing, it's new clothes that have tags, because a lot of a vintage clothes either don't have tags or the tags don't really, the sizes are not like people are now.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Even though he does like to stir controversy, he just wanted to point out that he's not opposed to doing sizes for things like that. For the vintage, very vintage clothing, he'll do it for, but it's not necessarily needed on every single item. I guess is what he's trying to stress.
Yeah, I would say a majority of our items are definitely newer.
90s vintage.
Yeah, 90s till now. But if there's something like a T-shirt from the 70s or an older jacket, something like that, and after dealing with thousands of pieces of clothing, you can kind of tell if it's a large and it looks a little small, then you definitely need to do a measurement for it. But that's usually the exception to the rule for our perspective.
I mean, I like when people stir things up because that's the only way any of us will evolve and, just do all this stuff in a better way, as long as it's thought through and it's tested. I mean, really, that's the thing. You have these crazy ideas, and then if you try them out and if things sell, then it works. And that's the answer, So.
And I know I'm getting nerdy, but if someone were to buy something from us on eBay and it's a size large, and they open a request to return for an item not as described and say that, oh, the item says it's large, but it's small on me or it's big on me, it's not going to hold up with eBay because we listed it properly. And basically, if you call the eBay rep, they're going to say, and since we have returns that we accept within 14 days, they'll just say that the buyer has to pay the shipping and we won't get a defect, which it's fine. If they want to return it, we have no issue. It's more of just avoiding a defect. So if they try to ding you on that, then you can certainly fight it and you'll win because you properly described it. And it's more, they're going to review that as a buyer's remorse.
So interesting. As someone that sells on eBay, we've been doing this since 2008 and we sell a lot of clothes still. I'm just like, we've always done it this one way. And now someone's confronting me with this idea of I could do it another way easier and it would still do the same. It's so hard to let go of the way we've always done it,
I think it's hard too. It depends on what you sell. If you sell clothes that are a little bit older, you may come across it more where you have people asking for the sizes, and you can always do them all. And then if you have someone message you and say, hey, can you shoot me the measurements? You can do it just on that instead of going to every single
Well, I
person.
mean, I know Lisa said that, but I may it may ruffle a few feathers. But if someone messages me for a size or specific measurements on something, I just don't respond to them.
Yep.
And the reason I don't respond is if I do respond and tell them no, I think it's going to cause more of an issue than if I just don't reply to them. From our perspective, it's tough if someone wants a measurement on a t-shirt. I'm not going to go look for it, do the measurements, and then have them say, oh, well, sorry, it's not the exact size I'm looking for.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's just, I know some people might be like, what? But, if you don't answer, then you aren't really engaging that person, and the person can go and buy another item, if they need it. So,
Yep.
okay, so let's talk about the process that your sister does. So she also gets paid 75 cents per item to put up on eBay. Is that correct?
Yes.
And does she have access to your account?
Yep. So, I mean, she obviously has her password and everything like that. Our eBay password and PayPal password are different. Not that I think she would ever steal anything. I mean, I'm not worried about that. But if it was a random person, it would definitely make me nervous. But I would think even if it's a random person that I'm not that familiar with, if your PayPal information is different, and I think you have to type in your password to view the personal information
Yep.
if you go to that. So they can't really buy anything because I would see if they bought something. So I would say it's pretty safe to provide that information in a certain context and keep an eye on everything.
And they do have a software too where people can list for you, and they in your account, but they don't have access to your password and all that stuff. So it is possible if you ever wanted to ramp up. But I guess my question is, did you specifically pick your sister because it's a sensitive kind of task, or just she had been available?
Well, it's funny when we started to have the guy list, or I should say, do pictures for us on eBay. We're in Florida again at the time, and my grandma actually recommended. She's like, "Hey, your sister would be good at doing that. She'd make more money than she would doing just a part-time job." She's younger, so I mean, she's still in her early 20s, and instead of working at a place like a Target where you're going to make like $10 an hour, she's actually going to make more money per hour listing things on eBay than she would having to go to Target. She can do it from at her convenience at the house, things like that.
Yeah, I mean, I always tell people if you work a job where you're making under it's $15 an hour, you'll always make more money on eBay if you put the same amount of hours into it. I mean,
Yep.
It's almost guaranteed.
Yeah, I agree. And I did the numbers. I think that on a per hour basis for the pictures, it's probably around $10 to $12 an hour. And it's the same for listing. Sometimes certain items can be more cumbersome, but for example, we had her list like 300 trucker hats at one time. So you can kind of get into the rhythm, and it's a lot easier to do a certain item at once. So she probably ended up making more than $10, $15 an hour on certain objects.
And is that how it works where each of the people, the person that takes photos and the person who will put them up on eBay, they get the same kind of items? So they'll get like a folder or a bundle of shirts or hats?
Yeah, the way we package them, once we buy the items, we try to package like items together. So that way it's when he like opens them, he's going to take pictures, put them back in that same tote, but the order that he takes them in will make sense so that it kind of flows through the rest of the process.
Yep.
So say like we've bought him like mannequin heads, things like that. So we try to package everything so when he opens it, okay, I can get my mannequin head out and the lights set up like this and just hit through them fast like that, and doing the same thing over and over again. And
Yep.
then that process goes over to her as well, where she can leave in like certain things as she's listing it because it's the same thing over and over. So that kind of helps with.
Yeah, we like to take the Henry Ford assembly line approach with that stuff.
I do it too. Like right now, I'm looking at a basket of scarves that I've made for it myself. And on Monday, I'll just take pictures of probably 100 scarves, and that's how you do it.
And you probably won't want to look at one for another 6 months.
Yeah. These are 6 months of scarves that have been building up. Now, I've got to ask the same question about your a sister. Now, she's young, early 20s. She probably, buys her clothes and she's into clothes too. So she's doing this stuff for you on eBay. Why doesn't she say, well, I could go buy this stuff at Goodwill and sell it and make more money?
Yeah, I mean, she's definitely really smart, and she could easily do that. I think again, it's more the other aspects of it. Everyone, from what I've found, it's easy to buy the stuff, but the rest of it, listing it, storing it, organizing it, sending it out, that's where people are like, oh, okay, well, I hate doing that. I want to buy this stuff, but now I actually have to figure out a method to sell it and efficiently set everything up.
And
Yeah.
like people don't realize like it's basically a whole nother job. Like you have to have the time every night to look for the item, ship it out. And if you're doing it all yourself, maybe on like a smaller scale, like people think, oh, here's an item, sell it for me online. And they don't realize the time that goes into it.
Yeah. Do you guys deal is with that where family or friends come and say, hey, I've got, all this stuff. Can you sell it for me?
Yes. And we're trying as much as we can not to do that. It's hard to mix with people like not realizing the stuff that goes into it and the time.
Yeah.
So we try to shy away from that
Yeah.
unless
We always tell people, I'll teach you how, but we won't do it for you.
my mom's as I've inherited her computer skills, so she wants to me to like teach her. Dan's taught me a few things, but it's easier, like you said, to have them start and set up like their own account. Like we have given like people ideas. His one cousin tried to kind of say like, oh, that's really easy. I'll just do that too. And not realizing the time it takes.
Yeah, so my cousin, I mean, she kind of took you up on your offer of saying, "Oh, well, look at Dan and Lisa. They're selling all this stuff on eBay. I'm going to do it." And I think she lasted about a month or two until she realized how much work it was.
The other question I have is, so, people would think, well, okay, so if you have these two people, they're doing this for you. Well, why don't you get four people or six people? Like, what's to stop you from scaling up?
I would say Lisa stopped me. She punched me.
Storage is a main thing right now. We did just buy a new house, and it's our first house, so it's exciting. But in the same aspect, you have storage as one of them, and obviously you constantly have a flow of selling items every day, so you're getting a little bit of space more every day. But for me, I like to stay organized because then you can find the item, get in, get out, be done with it. The more items you have, the more we keep everything in totes for the most part, except for jackets we have hanging. When you have so many items, it takes up a lot of space. And I don't know how many of you have, 3-layer houses or things like something like that to keep it all. But it's our first house. It's not huge, but it fits for us.
Yeah, I would say instead of scaling up on eBay, we're going to start to scale up on Amazon. We currently don't sell on Amazon, but it's something that we're looking into, and it would alleviate the storage issue, and we would just send out some of the newer stuff on Amazon. So I think we're going to start to dip our toe into that.
Yeah, it seems like with Amazon, that solves a lot of its problems. It cuts everybody out. Some of the steps out. The issue is, I guess it's for us is always finding inventory cheap enough that will sell for high enough to make it a valuable.
Exactly. I don't want to buy something for a dollar and sell it for 10 on Amazon. I definitely want to have a good profit margin on there. So at this time, we're just building up enough inventory so that when we do send it, it's worth it for us as far as the subscription costs go. And I'm also going to look into just getting approved in certain areas, so I don't have to worry about sending things in and potentially getting in trouble or something like that. I definitely want to become as familiar as I can and have all the proper approvals in place before I start to send stuff there.
Yeah, and how fragile is this process that you have? I think that's always my concern too. If we were ever to do this, we hire people, but then do you feel like it's just kind of a touch and go thing? A week, could is this guy a leave in a week? Could a sister just say I'm done?
I think if that were to happen, we would just go out and find someone else. Obviously, it wouldn't be an ideal situation, but I think given the experience that we've had, we could kind of weed out the people that we wouldn't want to work with. But we'd probably just go out and try to find someone and hope that they were as reliable. I would say it's more important to have someone that's reliable as opposed to someone maybe they take amazing pictures but they're spotty. I'd rather have someone maybe they take pictures that are on a scale of like 7.5 out of 10, but you know that they're always going to get done, as opposed to someone that takes the most professional pictures you can think of, but they're not reliable.
Okay, so we're kind of getting towards the tail end here of our conversation, but I do have a couple things more. So you guys are mainly buying clothes only. Are you buying shoes? Any hard goods? I mean,
Yeah, we've branched out a bit. We first started just with clothes, and then after that we switched into mugs, some things like that. Definitely some shoes, bags, things like that. So we mixed it up a little bit. It is harder with some of the breakables, especially. We got very lucky when moving from houses. We didn't have anything break, so that helped a lot. But you get a little more nervous with shipping with breakables. For clothes, poly mailers are really easy, so things like that help. So it just, when you have more inventory and different things, you have to then have space for different types of packaging and things like that.
so can we talk about your storage? I mean, so we have about 4,000, almost 5,000 items. So we have, you guys even have a little bit more than we have. And, our storage is kind of like spread out over several different spots on our properties. But yours is all in your home. I mean, where is it all? Is it like in your basement? I mean, is it just stacked high with tubs? How is it numbered,
We have about a 1,200 square foot basement, so that's where we keep everything. We organize essentially everything in tubs minus the large jackets that we hang up. But we just say if it's we kind of subdivide the tubs as we grow. So say, for example, it started out as black T-shirts, and then as we started to grow, now it's non-sport black T-shirts, black sport T-shirts, things like that. But we definitely have enough space, and I know that we did just move into the house. We're going to start building shelving and things like that, just so we can have like the mugs displayed, so we can find those easily. And it's definitely enough space, but we want to just be smart about it and make sure that it's properly set up from the beginning, so that as we do grow and everything like that it's properly set up.
It doesn't really matter how much space you have. It all depends on how it's all laid out, Exactly. I see some people, they take photos and they have, a fairly good sized room, but stuff is just in big piles. And I'm like, oh my God, I can't imagine what that would be like.
Yeah, the amount of time, we're just on like one group on Facebook, and the things that people literally have like a bedroom and just piles and piles of clothes. Like I get like just looking at that, like probably you do. Like, how do you find anything? Yeah. It's not profitable. You have to think with eBay about your time as well. Like your time is an investment. Even though it's a fun thing, it's something that you have to keep in mind. Is it really worth searching 2 hours for a T-shirt that's going to sell for, I don't know, $15? You have to keep organized so that way your time it's valuable. So make sure you're using it wisely, I guess.
Yep. Now, who does the shipping? Is it both of you, or how do you do that work?
Both. Usually since we've moved to the house, it's a little different organizing. So he's more of remembering where things are, a little bit easier, like which tote is in which corner. So he usually grabs them, and I'm usually the one right now packing everything up. So
both of you work. I mean, what time do you have to go to work? Like 8 or 9 in the morning, or?
Yeah. So I be at work at 8, and then.
Usually I'll play basketball before I go to work at like 6:30 in the morning, and then I usually get home around 5. So we're both like around early in the morning until about 5 at night.
So when do you actually pack then? Like, do you have to, wake up an hour earlier than that?
No, we just do it when we get home. So every night we, the stuff that we sold that day, we'll pack at night, probably around 8 or 9 o'clock at night.
I'm very lucky he's our postal man who takes care of getting it there. So I'm very blessed to have him for that.
Yeah, so after we pack everything, I just put it in my car at night, and during my lunch break, I'll just swing by the post office and drop it off there. I'm there every day, so they basically just let me walk in, drop off the stuff, and I leave.
That's good. Yeah. So it's no standing in line. You guys can share as much as you want to share here, but I'm interested. I mean, how much are you guys actually getting out the door each week or each day? I mean, are you doing like 100 items a week, 200 items?
No, I would say that usually per month. So like this month, I think we're going to sell like around 175 items.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, right.
So it's pretty manageable. It's usually like 4 or 5 items a day, depending on the day, sometimes more, sometimes less.
And have you seen your numbers grow over the past 12 months?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, like I said, at the beginning of the year, up until March, we had less than 1,000 items. So now we're up to around 5,000. And I would say our goal next year is to make enough to pay for our mortgage and all of our taxes and everything like that. I would shoot for a net profit of around 50,000 after expenses and everything.
Maybe if you can help me answer this, because if you like to do its numbers. When we were selling, 1,000, 2,000 items, we were making a certain amount. But as we've gotten to it's 4,000 items and above, we don't really see our income exponentially grow. Have you figured out why that might be, or did you experience that?
Yeah, I think we're the same way. We haven't the numbers haven't exponentially grown, and I would just say it's because we have more of the same approach of you as the buy and hold method of we're trying to maximize the profit on each item. So if I would assume if we did auctions or something like that, start everything at 99 cents, we'd probably sell a lot more stuff. But since we're trying to just maximize the profit, and we definitely price items high initially, I would think that that's the reason.
So if you don't think it's an eBay conspiracy where they're like, whoops, they're at 2,000 items, we're going to throttle them because they're selling too much.
No, I would think if it was the eBay conspiracy, they would want your item to sell more stuff the more you listed. So it wouldn't make sense why eBay would want to punish you for having more items listed.
Yeah, they get more of a profit the more that you sell. So
no, I just laugh because it's just such a prevalent thing, and I just never know the answer to give people other than just like it just seems so complicated. It's conspiracies people come up with. I just imagine these coders, they would have to be coming up with these crazy these crazy codes to like stop people from doing all these things.
Yeah, I would say instead of coming up with conspiracies, just worry about listing items and you'll probably sell more.
You guys just price it. That's the price. It's researched, and then it sits there until it sells. Is that right?
Yeah, I forgot. For when my sister lists, I give her certain price points on things. So I say basically T-shirts are $24.99 best offer, jackets are $70.99 best offer, and then like I said, if there's something higher, I'll usually do it myself. But I give her a certain price point and basically a matrix of certain items I want listed and how I want them priced and the cost of shipping, things like that.
Got it. And how many can she handle every week or on an average week?
That's about 200 items a week, I would say.
That's incredible. I mean, that's great. Okay, so a couple more things. This is going to be weird for me to ask, but it's a good one. Like, why do you work so hard? I mean, you guys both have full-time jobs, and you're running a pretty big eBay business. Like, is there a end goal here?
Like I said earlier, mostly our goal is so that like we look down the line at the price of like daycare and stuff like that, and obviously with the way health insurance is nowadays, and eBay is not extremely like 100% type. You can always get your money right on time. We just want one of us to stay home with the kids, which would most likely be me. So if we make enough where we can afford to have me stay at home with the kids, that's basically our goal, and to have it pay the mortgage and whatnot, so he doesn't feel a big financial burden with missing my regular job paycheck.
Yeah. I mean, are you guys in a part of the state where it's expensive, like high taxes and
Yes, New York State is the worst for taxes.
Yeah, so our and my dad's gonna laugh if he hears this. So our taxes are like around 6,000 a year, and that's just like school and property. So it's definitely a rude awakening from renting to buying a home, and realizing that most of your mortgage payment is taxes as opposed to the actual mortgage.
That's crazy. So yeah, I mean, ours is about 1,000 here in a rural. It's Virginia. Now that's interesting. So have you guys? We moved from San Francisco to where we live now. I mean, have you guys ever thought, well, if you moved to a different state, that life would be cheaper, you wouldn't have to
It,
work so hard?
it is very tempting. Unfortunately, we do have all of our family up here, and we are younger, so would be nice when we have kids if we have people around us who are family.
Like grandma
But
and grandpa.
yeah, so that kind of one of the things. We did look at Arizona for a while. Just it was gorgeous out there. We took a trip out there and it was beautiful, and the taxes are so much nicer.
Yeah.
But we have noticed the southern states are, besides gorgeous weather that you guys have, it's also the amount of money for their thrift stores and stuff like that. Once a year, we do go down to Florida and do a buying trip where we hit the thrift stores down there, and they are usually about almost half the price of what they are up here.
And then one other thing, when we were talking before doing this conversation, Dan, we were talking about, if you've had schooling and grad school, so if you've taken tests for the job that if you have, could you ever walk away from that, even if eBay was doing well?
It would be pretty hard. I mean, I've spent most of my life, preparing for the job that I do have. And I remember when I was younger, I was always like, oh, I'm going to work on Wall Street. So I lived in the city for college. I went to college down there, and I did work on Wall Street. I worked at a few financial firms, and eventually I figured out that it really wasn't for me, just from a commute perspective, and I didn't really like the environment. So definitely moving upstate to a more low key area, I found that I like that more. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely something that would be tough, and for all the work I've put in, but I mean, I would never rule anything out long term.
Yeah, I only asked the two of you this because both of you are young and both of you have trained for the jobs that you had. And we've asked ourselves this because it's tough. I mean, we chose to kind of walk away from the jobs we had. And, the longer we stay away, the less work history we have. I mean, it's getting harder, I think, that we could ever go back and work at those jobs full time. I don't know. The good thing is we've been able to make this work for us, but it was, for me especially, I definitely had a thing where, I always thought, well, I have to have a job, and now I realize I don't.
And that helps. I think you have only so many years on this planet. Like you have to be doing something you like, and we both like our jobs as they are right now. If we get to a point, our goal to have like a steady enough income, it'd be great if we could both quit our jobs.
Yep.
But like you said, like we're still just starting out, so we're trying to get, it doesn't, just because you're selling more doesn't mean you're always bringing in more.
Right. And if you don't mind me asking, how old are you guys?
I'm 29.
Wow.
Yeah, 28. Yep.
Wow. I mean, I'm telling you guys, I was telling Dan this, save every penny. Like, set aside 5 years, don't eat out anymore, just save everything. And then, if you could totally pay off all your debts and just quit and do whatever you want, have kids.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely the goal, is to pay off our debts. I mean, we had our main expenses are the mortgage and then my student loans. So I would advise anyone just to take out as little student debt as possible, because it's a rude awakening when you have to start to pay that back.
It's so hard, though, when you're in the middle of it and they're willing to give you just crazy loans so that you can like have a nice apartment and eat out. And
And it's nice, though, like one of the great things about thrifting on eBay and finding things is you can find stuff for yourself as well. Like it blows my mind that people pay retail for their everything. So it's great got so many things for ourselves while thrifting as well, besides just selling, that it helps a lot to kind of keep your costs down in life as well. So you can sell on eBay and gift to yourself as well.
Yeah, and Lisa's she found like a $1,500 vanity on the Habitat for Humanity website, which we bought and put in our bathroom recently. So that was really, I think we bought it for like $170, and new in the stores. I know that you have done houses, so you know how expensive those are. So it's like a granite countertop one. It's pretty nice, and we're definitely trying to use that kind of stuff to our advantage instead of deeper one.
And not only is it a good deal, there is no better thrill than it's finding that too. I mean, how exciting!
Yeah, that's one of the things. It's kind of like when we first started. I'm not going to lie, we got a little competitive to see who could find the thing that bring the most profit. And it's a lot of fun. People have to realize, like, yes, we're working, but we're having fun while doing it. And you learn a lot of things too. You learn things that you can get for yourself. You learn things about other people, what other people would want. And a lot of the thrifting that I've done has been for organizations like churches or food banks. So they sell their items, and any money that you're giving them is going towards people to actually eat. Like, people don't need 500 sweaters, but they need to eat. So it's nice that we're giving back as well. We're getting stuff for our store, and they're getting food on tables of families that can't afford it.
So are you guys mainly just going to thrift stores, or also like auctions and yard sales and anywhere you go?
We haven't done any auctions yet. We are looking into that. We do mostly estate sales, garage sales, thrift stores, things like that. You never know what you're going to find.
Because if you're working as a team, are you guys arguing a lot about money and how things are done?
We pretty much are pretty good on that. We haven't really had any issues with that. I think the most stressful part was moving everything, and we didn't shut our store down at all when we moved from one house to another, and moving all our belongings plus 5,000 items will definitely put a little stress on each of you. And then also finding those items every night while the house is not put together yet. I think that was our only time in the last couple of years that we were both like a little stressed, but everything else has been pretty good.
Yep.
Yeah, and do you guys, have like a shared bank account, and do you talk about budgets and money and where the money's going to go?
Yeah, for the most part, we communicate pretty good. He is in control of most of the accounts. Goes mostly to his email, but he'll like shoot me an email like, should we accept this bid? Do you think we can get more? So we communicate pretty good on that aspect.
Yeah, so we basically try to funnel our money to our joint savings account. So we were essentially tying all of our bills and everything like that to that savings account so that all of our bills can be paid from the money that we make from eBay. And we actually keep our income separate so that we can meet our goal of basically paying all of our bills through sales on eBay. And then if for some reason it's short, then we can just add money to that account.
Yeah. I mean, I would think even though you're in a state with high taxes, I would imagine that you guys are doing pretty good with 2 full-time jobs and a full-time eBay store.
Yeah, we do good. I mean, we're the first one of our friends to buy a house. But just because you have the money, like you said, it doesn't mean you have to spend the money. If you can, like you said, like not go out as often, you don't have to buy everything brand new, then you can have more money and do things you like. Like, we love eBay thrifting and everything like that. So if we have extra money for that to invest in our eBay store, then you can't beat it.
Yeah, I work in a corporate setting, so it's always keeping up with the Joneses there, and people will come in with new Beamers and things like that. And I have a car from 2007 that's fully paid off, and they'll make fun of me because I refuse to buy a newer car. It's funny too because they'll all shop at the same places and things like that, but then I'll come in with just a random, I don't know, suit jacket or something like that, and they're like, "Oh, where'd you get that from?" And I'll tell them the Goodwill, and they usually don't believe me, so they're like, "No, well, where'd you really get that from?" And then I'll just make up a random place because.
That's so crazy. Yeah, that's funny. Now, do you guys have a tax accountant that does all your taxes? Because I can imagine that could get pretty...
Yeah, we have a CPA, and we basically run everything through him and take his advice and guidance, and he's definitely great to work with.
Good. Yeah. And then the final thing I have to ask. So you guys are young and, all of it's your friends. What do they think about what you guys are doing?
Mostly, like, some of them didn't understand until a couple of them helped us move. And we moved most of the eBay stuff ourselves. But when they saw the store, we had a few jaw drops. When they went down to the basement and saw all that. They kind of like it. Some of them get a little, like, it's kind of funny. He got a brand new North Face and he kept it for himself. And everyone's like, oh, I wish I had that, like, and everything like that. And he's like, how much did you spend? $200. And when he went and said how much he actually got it, I think some of them were a little jealous.
But do you think they understand the actual scale of what you guys are doing and that it's a real thing?
No, they definitely have. They can't really comprehend, I guess, the magnitude of which we're selling. I mean, even if you tell them and show them, like, hey, look how much money I made the past 60 days or whatever, they're like, yeah, whatever, that's cool. But they don't understand the amount of time or what the actual operation looks like in the basement until they actually see it. And even with that being said, they still really can't wrap their mind around it.
Yeah, I guess I got to think back to it's when I started. I just would never assume that all of this could be possible. That if you thought it through, did the numbers, put in the work, that we could make a full-time income on this plus.
Yeah, and it's pretty cool. Like, you're kind of in control of something where your job, you never know. That's the other thing. Like, I would advise, like, anyone to go out there, and it's great to have, like, a backup. I mean, most people, like, they just do it so they can have a little cash here and there. But with the economy the way it is, like, you never know. Like, if you lose your job, something happens, like your building burns down or something, then you have, like, a backup with eBay. It's kind of like a security as well, which helps. I like that.
Yep, because as we all know, Wall Street gigs and any kind of job, those things aren't guaranteed always. So
I know it's a family podcast, so it's and I would just say it's good to have FU money if and a backup plan.
Yeah, it's funny. I guess we are a family podcast. Okay, well, is there anything we didn't cover that you guys wanted to share with people?
No, I think we definitely went over a lot. I appreciate you guys. It's always great to listen to the podcast, and we've really learned a lot from you, and I appreciate all the work that you guys put in.
Yeah, and you guys, thanks for spending your Saturday morning with us. And, it always excites me to hear other people who are just, sometimes I think like we're the only ones doing this. And then I'm like, oh, there's these people, they're putting all this time into it. And it makes me feel like we're all kind of doing it together,
Yeah, and you guys definitely give us hope. Like, eventually we would love to quit, like, our full-time jobs and everything. So it's great, like, to hear that people are actually out there doing that. With your podcast and everything and recording it and telling people, I think it's amazing what you do. It's great.
Well, thanks. And we always, and that's why my questions were what you guys are going to do. It's with the extra cash. I mean, we're really big now into like find something to put that money into, either invest it or buy real estate or pay off your debt or raise kids. I mean, that's what this is all about,
Definitely. If you can do something that you're having fun with and pay off your debt before, get a house bought and pay off student loans, then later on in life, we hopefully can retire earlier and do more eBay just by ourselves, nothing else.
Exactly. Cool. All right, guys. Thanks a lot. I'll talk to you later.
All right. Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye.